And now let's take a look at an issue that Telile Community Television will be concentrating on over the next several days. It's about the Arichat Community Development Association and the group's plans to set up a new park near Ecole Beau-Port. We heard recently from Rachelle Samson, who made a presentation on the proposal at the Committee of the Whole meeting for Richmond Municipal Council in February. In a few moments, we're going to share that entire presentation with you. Keep an eye on Telile over the next little while because Becky Bourinot sat down with Rachelle Samson recently for an exclusive interview about the park project. And coming soon on our sister French interview show, Notre Côté, I'll be speaking with ACDA Representative Nick Boudreau about the park project as well. But to begin, let's take a look at Rachelle Samson's presentation to Richmond Council's Committee of the Whole about how the park project is proceeding and how the Arichat Community Development Association got going in the first place.
So the association was established in 1998 by some really wonderful community members who brought to fruition the Arichat Playground, which was previously located behind Gulliver's Tea Room. In June of 2020, there was some newly appointed officers and directors who joined the committee, and after a couple meetings, kind of decided that they wanted to bring together the Richmond County Recreation Park. They all had the common goal of wanting to increase the health and wellness of community members through outdoor recreation. So at these meetings, I think, we really established a round table of things that we want to bring to this community. So our goal is to have a park that aims to provide an inclusive experience for people of all ages and all abilities. Oftentimes, people with mobility issues or people on the autism spectrum have a separate experience from their peers, and this park really aims to remove that boundary altogether. So the Richmond County Recreation Park will house a 2-lane walking track, which will be specifically the size to have 2 wheelchairs or walkers side by side. An inclusive playground, which will not only be wheelchair accessible, but will encompass sensory play equipment for children on the autism spectrum. A fitness area with outdoor workout equipment. A skating rink, which can be drained in the summertime and used as a shinny rink. A splash pad, a beach volleyball court, which is currently existing, and then aside from that, which all of that will be enclosed within a fence, in a separate area there'll be a off-leash dog park, which will have a section for larger dogs and a section for smaller dogs. So the location, as you could kind of see where the skateboard park is just up the road from the municipality building. It's off to the left of the school, Ecole Beau-Port. So it's kind of strategically located in the heart of the community. We feel it's a great area. It's a really great piece of land. It was a baseball field, so there's some drainage underneath. And the land itself is quite moldable, so you don't have to remove any big trees or make any big changes, and you have access to it currently, which is great. Location-wise, it is right next to Ecole Beau-Port, so it's not involved with the school. It'll be a completely separate public space, but it's very convenient to have next to a school for the children. It is just up the road from St. Anne's Centre, which with the new sidewalks, which I know everyone has really enjoyed with the mild winter we've had, they can just kind of either come on up, they can take a walk on up to the park, or they can drive up. It's not far. And it's also just down the road from the Hartsville Madame Disability Association home. That I think they could benefit from that as well. So our strategy, we understand that this is a very large project. There's quite a bit of things in there. So we've divided it into multiple phases that we'll accomplish over multiple years, depending on the source, how much funding we can source within a time frame. So depending on how much we can get, if we can get it all that we need, we can do it all at once, and if not, we can do it over multiple years. So we've budgeted for $600,000. This is based on we acquired quotes from multiple suppliers for multiple aspects of the project. And we came up with that number. That also includes a lot of volunteer time that we think we'll be able to put in there as well. So we're going to do some fundraising, local fundraising, Chase the Ace, silent auction, big sales, tournaments, and donations from individuals and businesses. there are quite a few provincial and federal grants at this time for recreation and sports, and especially I know COVID really pushed that, which I think is great. So we'll definitely be dipping into there. We've got quite a setup going for that. And we have a great community of people who are so able and so skilled and have access to quite a lot of things that I think we'll have a lot of volunteers on this project as well. So our partners, what we're looking to do, we understand that there's a lot of businesses and people, like I said, on this island who can't necessarily contribute financially, which we completely understand. But as I mentioned, there are a lot of skilled individuals on this island, and people have a lot more to give than just money. They have a lot of time, and they have, well, not a lot of time, but they have time and they have abilities and access to things that some people don't. So there is the Conseil de Développement Économique de la Nouvelle-Écosse that we are working with, CDENE. And they have provided us kind of with a groundwork on how to kind of get the project going. And Erin Ryan is the female we're working with there. And she's kind of giving us a concept of what funds are out there, what grants to source, and kind of how to put our project together, which is a great start to such a large project. We've been in contact with the CSAP to kind of talk to them about how we think they could contribute. We gave them ideas like they have like a charpenterie class where they can build stuff if they wanted to build a park bench, or they wanted to build bilingual signage, or monuments with the Acadian history. So projects of such sort I think would be really beneficial for those students because they could see it being used in the community. They also have classes like entrepreneur and co-op and stuff if the students were interested in helping us bring this project to life. I think that would be really cool for them to be able to see it in the real world. The municipality of the County of Richmond, we understand, that there isn't always a budget for these things, but we know that you guys have a great staff with, great access to certain things, so we'd love to be able to come up with a way that we could work together to see that come to life. Just like local businesses and organizations, there's some people with big equipment, which we're going to need at some point, some heavy operating systems, and I think there's some people who would be really keen to try to help us get that done at a lower cost. And as well, community members, like I mentioned, some great volunteers and some people who can help us. I know a lot of the installation of equipment, if you can take that, a lot of suppliers will let you do that on your own with a certain amount of insurance. So I know we can gather some community members to get that done as well.
How did Richmond councillors react to Rachelle Samson's proposal on behalf of the Arichat Community Development Association? Well, let's hear a few of those reactions, beginning with District 1 councillor Rachelle Samson, whose constituency takes in eastern portions of Arichat, as well as Petit de Gras and the surrounding communities.
Thank you to you and your group for putting this project, or planning this project, more or less. I mean, a couple of weeks ago we had some presentations from Engage Nova Scotia when it comes to quality of life initiatives in this area, and the Strait area and Western Cape Breton was on the radar for people that are choosing places to live first before looking for jobs. So the fact that these areas are on their radar, and the fact that recreation parks like this project would attract more people to this area and give people the initiative to come here and also stay here with their young families. I think it's great, and whatever we can do as a council, we'll gladly do it for you.
Now let's hear from District 3 councillor Melanie Sampson, who has a comment and a question for Rachelle Samson. Following Rachelle Samson's response, you'll hear once more from District 1 councillor Rachelle Samson. Yes, we know there's a lot of Samsons in there. Bear with us. Here's District 3 councillor Samson right now.
It's really wonderful to see a community group so interested in something. It's such a big project, and I think it will really benefit the community for sure. I'm curious about your phases. So you've talked about like multiple phases. You'd also talked about, that those phases would sort of roll out as funding is secured. So do you have a general plan in terms of, where would you start? Like what would be the first part that you'd be interested in pursuing?
The way that we kind of did it, we looked at the project from a standpoint of going outside in. So your first step is obviously to prep the land and kind of get that ready so that whatever piece you do decide to go with, it's capable. So the first thing we think is that's really needed in this community is a playground. There was one in Arichat, and it unfortunately just didn't work out, and the piece was quite small. So our first big pieces probably be the walking track and the playground. We think those reach the biggest, component, and I think that would, once people see that come to life, I think they would realize that, it's really going forward and the potential is really there. And then that still allows you to work in around it. The walking track, you would have to leave a space if you had to bring on big equipment just to come through, but we planned all that through with the fencing area, that there's still room.
So you would pretty much work your way from the outside in. So start with the walking track, and that's great, And also, you mentioned dog park. How many times I don't know about you, Mike, and you guys, but in this area, how many times, people saying we need a dog park in this area, right? So to have you mention a dog park is great as well,
Shortly after hearing about how Samson and her group want to tackle the project in phases, Richmond Warden Amanda Mumberket asked Samson what the Development Association's plans are going forward and whether they could be looking at other community development projects for inspiration.
Have you thought about sort of like costing that up and like chunking that up into programs yet, or is that like a little bit a ways down the road yet for you?
We thought about that in the beginning. We weren't sure if we wanted to apply for pieces as we went, but we decided that we want to tackle it as a project, a large project.
Right.
All of it at once and get as much out of it as we can. There's quite a bit of funding out there, which is really great. We have an entire spreadsheet full of grants and things you can go at. So we're kind of just tackling them one by one and gathering the things that we need. And unfortunately, that's the part that takes the most time, is all the quotes. And you have to get multiple suppliers, and it's a whole process. So, but the way that we really kind of thought about it is that if we're just going to keep doing it as it comes in, and because the more people you have in the ground at once, the more you can kind of do at the same time. So the only thing that we thought we're really going to hit a snag with is the splash pad because of the water. So that's kind of the one that's probably going to take the most time, and then that and the rink. But the rink you can usually flood if you really wanted to, if you bring up massive amounts of water and then deal with it that way. But the splash pad requires continuous amounts of water flowing. So that one is kind of towards the end, even though it would be something we would love to see first. It's just a bit of a trickier process.
Right.
So that's kind of how we broke it down, but we're speaking to multiple people who have done similar projects that kind of are giving us, well, we did this or it didn't work for us. Proxbury is a great example of that, right? So they're really kind of, they've given us some great input on how to kind of tackle it the best way possible.
Now, just a reminder that this presentation from Rachelle Samson took place at the February meeting of Richmond's Committee of the Whole. However, following the regular council meeting 2 weeks later, I asked Warden Mumberket what she felt about the project and about the possibility of other communities taking on similar park development.
Oh, Rachelle did a great job with her presentation. I mean, she was professional, thorough. It's an exciting project. I mean, in my mind, anytime you see community groups like that willing to step up to enhance, essentially their own community center, it's hard to argue with that. I think they've got a great plan in place. She talked about an approach that made a lot of sense from an implementation perspective, and I'm excited to see where that goes for sure.
You get the sense that this could spark other communities to get similar projects going?
Oh, I hope so. But honestly, I think Richmond County can pat itself on the back. Our volunteers are pretty awesome at that kind of thing. When you look at, all the work that's gone on around the park in St. Peter's and the plans for, park in River Bourgeois. And there's a lot of communities that are paying attention to this. And I think it all harkens back to that conversation that we had with an Engage Nova Scotia regarding our quality of life and what's important to Nova Scotians and what's important to people here. So, yeah, it's great to see.